Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All go to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to this morning's vācaṁ class. This morning we will be hearing from His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. On Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, Verse 41, and it's given on December 19, 1973 in Los Angeles. Without further delay, we will start the class. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vācaṁ juhāva manasi tat prāṇa itare cha tam mṛtyāv apānaṁ sotsargaṁ tam pañcatve hi ajohavīt vācaṁ juhāva manasi tat prāṇa itare cha tam mṛtyāv apānaṁ sotsargaṁ tam pañcatve ajohavīt vācaṁ juhāva manasi itare ca tam mṛtyāv apānaṁ sotsargaṁ dang pañcatve ajohavīt vācaṁ juhāva manasi prāṇa itare ca tam mṛtyāv apānaṁ sotsargaṁ dang pañcatve ajohavīt
vācaṁ juhāva manasi
juhāva manasi
prāṇa itare chatam
prāṇa itare ca tam vācaṁ speeches, juhāva relinquished, manasi into the mind, dat prāṇa mind into breathing, itare ca other senses also, tam into that, mṛtyāv into death, apānaṁ breathing, sotsargaṁ with all dedication, tam that, pañcatve into the body made of 5 elements, he certainly, ajohavīt amalgamated it. Translation: then he amalgamated all the sense organs into the mind into life, life into breathing, his total existence into the embodiments of the 5 elements, and his body into death. Then as pure self, he became free from the material conception of life.
Read the purport.
Maharaj Yudhishthir, like his brother Arjuna, began to concentrate and gradually became freed from all material bondage. First of all, he concentrated all the actions of the senses, amalgamated in the mind, or in other words, he turned his mind towards transcendental service of the Lord. He prayed that all material activities were performed by the mind, actions and reactions of the material senses, and since he was going back to Godhead, the mind would wind up its material activities and be turned towards the transcendental service of the Lord. There was no longer need for material activities. Actually, the activities of the mind cannot be stopped because they are the reflection of the eternal soul, but the quality of the activities can be changed from matter to the transcendental service of the Lord. The material color of the mind is changed by washing it from contaminations of life-breathing and therefore getting it freed from the contamination of repeated births and deaths and getting it situated in pure spiritual life. All is manifested by the temporary embodiment of the material body, which is a production of mind at the time of death. And if the mind is purified by practice of transcendental loving service of the Lord, and the same is constantly engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, there is no more chance of the mind's producing another material body after death. It will be freed from the absorption of material contamination. The pure soul will be able to return back home, back to Godhead.
So this verse described in the manner of yogic practice. The yogic practice means controlling 5 kinds of air within the body. Prāṇa, apānaṁ, like that. That is breathing exercise. Yoga practice. So it appears that Maharaj Yudhishthira knew how to practice the yoga. Not only Maharaj Yudhishthira, practically any high-class man, especially the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas, every one of them knew this practice, yoga practice. So at the time of death, they could utilize how to give up this body. That is perfection of yoga. The yogis, they can give up the life or give this, relinquish this body according to his own desire, not compelled by the material condition. That is yoga. Generally, a man dies under the obligation of material laws. But a yogi, he controls in such a way that he leaves the body, just like Bhishmadev. Bhishmadev especially, his father gave him the benediction that so long he would not himself like to die, he'll never die. Bhishmadev, he got this benediction from his father because his promise was very stern, severe. You know the story that Bhishmadev's father was captivated by the young girl Satyavati, and he wanted to marry her. The Kshatriya could do that. But Satyavati's father disagreed. Although he was king, he could marry anyone he likes, but his father, still with the permission of the parents. So the father denied, no, I cannot give you my daughter to you. Why? Because you have got grown-up son, and he will be the king. Why is my daughter shall be married with you, just like maid servant? No. So Bhishmadev could understand that my father desires to marry this young girl, Satyavati, and there is some hindrances. So he approached. Hey, why don't you give my father your daughter? He said, because you are his eldest son, you become king. So he immediately promised that no, your daughter's son will become king. I will not become king. Give my father. So he said, no, still it is not possible. Why? Because you may not become king, then your son will become king. I don't want that. So in this way, Bhishmadev said, no, then I shall not marry. Is that all right? Still, and then he gave his daughter. Yes, Satyavati. So, his father, Santanu Maharaj, saw that Bhishma is so affectionate to his father that for the father's sense gratification, he has sacrificed his own. So he gave him this benediction, my dear son. You are so stern in keeping your promise, so I give you this benediction that he will never die unless you desire. Therefore, Bhishmadev was lying on the bed of arrows, and he left this material world when he desired. So the yogis can do that. The yogis, they control the soul. The soul is floating in different airs. So they can control. That is called Sarachakra. From the rectum to the abdomen, abdomen to the heart, heart to the collarbone, then collarbone to the palate, and then here. So one who can bring the soul here, they can get out from this hole. It is called Brahmarandra. So they can go, the yogis, as they desire, either he can go directly to the spiritual world, or if he likes, he can transfer himself to the higher planetary system. This is yoga practice. Anywhere he likes, he can go. It appears that Yudhishthira Maharaj knew perfectly well. Similarly, we see from many other kings' life, or this yoga practice was done by any gentleman. Therefore, they were so sober, steady, and determined. Well, everyone was a yogi. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is described, Rajarsi, Imang Rajarsayo Vidu. Rishi, saintly person, they know how to practice yoga. So, formerly, the kings were as good as Rishi. They are simply sitting on the throne as a matter of responsibility to the citizens. They are not political opportunists, no. Nowadays, people are political opportunists. As soon as they get some opportunity, they capture the power. Formerly, just like Bhishmadev, actually he would have been the king, but he was not opportunist. To serve his father, he gave up everything. This is called Rajarsi. So, the vācaṁ, if you can control your mind, then you can control your words. There are kaya, mana, vakka. Three things are. We have got this body, and we have got our mind, and we have got to talk. Talking is very important. You can talk nonsense all day and night, and you can talk about Krishna and chant Hare Krishna mantras, the same thing, vibration. See, if you talk nonsense, then you go to hell. And if you talk about Krishna and the Hare Krishna mantra chant, then you go back to home. Just see how else this talking is important. Simply by talking. Vācaṁ vaikuntha gunānuvandhani. So it is a matter of control. This is yoga means indriya samyama, controlling the senses. That is called yoga, real purpose of yoga. Because our senses are just like venomous serpents. So many people, they fall down on account of these senses. They become victim of the senses. So, yoga practice means the controlling the senses. This is the real purpose of yoga. There is certain mechanical process that is called yoga practice. Therefore, yoga practice is meant for a person who is too much in bodily concept of life. Otherwise, one who is convinced that I am not this body, then where is the necessity of exercising the body? But it is meant for a person who is too much absorbed in bodily concept of life. For him, this yoga practice is recommended, that by mechanical practice of the different parts of the body, the air within the body, one can control the senses, and unless the senses are controlled, the whole thing is sense, therefore consciousness. It depends on the senses. Purifying the senses. His spirit, soul is eternal. So his senses are eternal. you cannot stop the activities of the senses. That is not possible. Just like others, they think that if we stop, just like Vishwamitra Muni, he was a great yogi, he stopped the senses. He wanted to stop. He closed the eyes. I will not see beautiful woman. But he failed as soon as he heard the tinkling sound of the bangles of the Apsara, Manoka. So our senses are so strong. If you stop this sense, the other sense is prepared to kill you. They are called enemies there. Manasasthani indriyani prakritisthani karsati. We are struggling for existence with the mind and the senses. Otherwise, it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, these living entities, they are my part and parcel. That means they are as good as I am. Why they are rotting in this material world? Because on account of the mind and the senses. So yoga practice means you have to control first of all the mind and then you have to control the senses. That is perfection of yoga. So, Ambarish Maharaj, a great devotee, he controlled his mind, senses in this way. The first thing is to Sabai Mana Krishna Padaravinda. This yoga practice, bhakti yoga means this, not to try artificially to control the mind and the senses. That will be failure. In most cases, they are failure. In some cases, they are perfect or successful. But in most cases, they are failure. Especially in this age, well, people have no training, no simply extravagant, doing everything what he likes, no brahmachari system, nothing is taught. Formerly in the Vedic civilization, the boys should be sent to Gurukul for practicing brahmacharya. There is no such question now. So, the so-called practice of yoga simply useless waste of time. They cannot do anything. It is not possible. Therefore, a bhakti yoga system is to engage the senses and the mind in Krishna's service. If your mind is engaged in Krishna's service, then there is very little scope for the mind being diverted from it. It diverts, but if you practice, the Krishna will help you. Sinnadhang sakatha Krishna punna savana kirtana riddhantasya avadrani vidhunati suhit sada. Krishna is within yourself, and if you are sincerely trying to purify yourself, your mind, body, words, these things, so this beginning is to hear about Krishna, anything about Krishna. But the first thing we want to hear, if we want to know Krishna, naturally we are inclined. What is Krishna? What is Krishna? Just like our Krishna book is now selling, because the Krishna consciousness movement is there, so people are eager to know what this Krishna is. Naturally, they want to purchase some Krishna books. Actually, that is the first business. Just like we are speaking about, in God we trust, this slogan of the American people and American government. So naturally, people should be inquisitive to know actually what is God, scientifically. We say in God we trust, but we do not know what is God. then what is the question of trust? Suppose if somebody friend say that you can trust the Bank of America, but if he does not know what is Bank of America, then how he can trust? How he can deposit money? That is the difficulty. This is simply slogan. Otherwise, everyone should have been inquisitive. What this government has made this slogan, in God, what is God? Nobody knows. Then what is the question of trust? Therefore it has become everything humbug. But if you are serious to know about God, there is science, there is teacher, everything is there. God himself is there within your heart. Ishara sarvabhutana vriddesho arjuna tishtati. Actually, if you are serious to know God, so God is within himself, he can understand. Now this living entity is serious to know about me, so he will help you immediately. That is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Tesam satadujuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam buddhijogam dadamitam jena mam upajantite. Tesam, such persons, satadujuktanam, always very much anxious to know about God. The God can understand. God is omnipotent. He can understand that this living entity is now serious. He wants to hear about God. So this inquisitiveness is very good. My Guru Maharaj accepted me as his disciple because he saw in the beginning I was very inquisitive to hear him. So in the beginning, when many gentlemen, I was one of them, was introduced to my Guru Maharaj, they had to be initiated. They want to be initiated to become your disciple. So when my turn came, he immediately said, yes, I will accept this boy as disciple because he is very inquisitive to hear. That was my recommendation. And actually, I was very inquisitive. I could not follow what Guru Maharaj was speaking, but still I was asking others when Guru Maharaj will speak. I could not follow. He was speaking in a very high philosophical tone. So at that time I had no capacity to understand. Still I wanted to hear him. I understand and not understand. So this is very good qualification. So those who are coming here to listen about God, they are very fortunate. Krishna will help them. Savanam, the beginning of Bhakti Yoga, started from the practice of Sravanam, oral reception, ear. Therefore, the mantra is given through the ear, initiation mantra. Then Kirtanam, Savanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Achanam, Bandhanam, Dasam, Sakham, Atmanivedam. There are 9 different processes. The most important process is hearing. And as soon as you want to hear, that means you have to concentrate your mind. So, naturally, the mind becomes locked. But if we sleep, that is another thing. Let the lectures go on, let me have some rest. That is another thing. But if you hear, if you are anxious to hear, then mind has to be engaged. Without attention you cannot hear. If your mind is something doing, you are thinking of marketing something, or sometimes doing business, so you can hear, make a show of hearing, but you are not hearing. Therefore mind is the first thing. Samai mana Krishna padaravinda. Vācaṁ vaikuntha gunānuvandani. If you engage your mind in hearing, then you can describe the things in the Vaikuntha, in the spiritual world. Vācaṁ Vaikuntha gunāna. So we have to practice. This is Bhakti Yoga. First of all, we have to engage the mind. And as soon as you engage the mind in hearing about Krishna, Krishna will help you in cleansing your mind. That is the opinion given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Cheta Datmana Marjana. Because everything we cannot understand about God, or we cannot see God, or we do not know what is God, because there are so many dirty things on the mind. Otherwise, as soon as the mind is clear, devoid of all dirty things, you can say, you can understand what is God. You can see God every moment. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridaya subila. So, there is no difficulty. God is here, Krishna. But one's mind is not clear, he cannot see God. He sees a statue of stone. He sees a statue of stone. And one's mind is clear, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as soon as he sees Jagannath, immediately felt, here is Krishna. Actually, that is the fact. Here is Krishna. Krishna is omnipresent. That is God's one qualification, omnipresent. He is present everywhere. So, why not present in the temple? He is present here. But we have no eyes to see because our mind is not clean. So we cannot use the senses to see God. That is the difference. Therefore, premanjana charita bhakti vilachana. By the bhakti process, by devotional service, it cleans your mind, it cleans your senses. As soon as your mind is cleansed, then senses are also cleansed. And that is helped by Krishna himself, as he says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sinnataṁ sakatha. As soon as Krishna sees that you are eager to hear about him, Sinnataṁ sakatha, Krishna, Punna Savana Kirtan. By the first hearing, he may not understand about Krishna, but if you simply hear with little attention, although you do not understand, still you will be pious. Because the dirty things means covered with impious activities. So if you hear about Krishna, then gradually you will become pious. Simply by hearing. Simply just like if there is injection, some disease, vaccine, you understand or not understand, it will act. Suppose if you take poison, if you do not understand what is poison, it will act. Similarly, Krishna Katha is so powerful that if you simply hear, even if you do not understand, then you will become pious. And by becoming pious, because without becoming pious, nobody can understand Krishna. It is said in the Bhagavad Gita, Jesam antagatam papam, jananam punna karmanam. Those who are 24 hours engaged in pious activities. Therefore we engage our students in this Bhakti Yoga practice, 24 hours routine work, because it is pious activities, so he will be purified. He will be purified. We have got so many times offering arati, offering prasadam, cleansing the temple, dressing the deity, talking about him. 24 hours must be. Kirtaniya sadahari. Kirtaniya or sevaniya sadahari. 24 hours. In this way, we become purified. Chetadatpanamarjanam bhagavan. As soon as your mind is cleansed of all dirty things, then you become fit for going back to home, back to garden. So any yoga practice, but other yoga practice, hatha yoga practice, dhyana yoga practice, karma yoga practice, jnana yoga practice, these are very difficult in this age. But if you take to Bhakti Yoga practice, it is recommended Samanam Kirtanam, Kalotad Hari Kirtanat. In this age, Kali Yuga, this Hari Kirtan is Bhakti Yoga. Krite Jadhyato Vishnu Tritayanga Jajato Makhai, in different ages, because the people are different. So different methods are prescribed in the Shastra. In the Sattva Yuga, the meditation method was possible. In other Yuga, it is not possible. In Treta Yuga, by sacrificing big yajna, performing yajna. In Dwapara Yuga, by temple worship. And Kalotad Hari Kirtanat, and in this Kali Yuga, simply by Hari Kirtan, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, you can get the same result. Therefore, our process is Kirtan, always Kirtanya Sada. So, by Bhakti Yoga practice, you become perfect in all yogic processes, and ultimately you realize God very easily and directly, and that will help you to go back to home, back to Godhead. That is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Janma karmam midibbam jujanati tattata takta deham punarjanma naiti mamiti kanti. Anyone who understands Krishna in truth, janma karmam midibbam jujanati tattata. Tattva means in truth, not superficial. If you understand Krishna in truth as he is, and he is speaking himself about himself, there is no difficulty. So if you simply accept Krishna, what he says, if you follow, then you become perfect and you become fit for going back to home, back to God. Thank you very much.
Wonderful class by Srila Prabhupada again. So nice points. So beautiful points about controlling the mind and the senses and the words. And the process of bhakti yoga that was given to us in this age of Kali, which very nicely Srila Prabhupada says, I'm trying to find the words where he said that we get the same result. Like, what a promise, what a wonderful promise by the Lord. So I would like to ask devotees if you have any, takeaways, any reflections, or even questions. We are very happy to have His Grace. We are very happy to have His Grace Vishnupada Prabhu with us here. So if anyone has any questions, please do raise your hand. But Vishnupada Prabhu, if you would like to start us off, Prabhu, that would be great. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I see the Zoom user. Is Parikshit Prabhu here on?
No, Prabhu, he's actually on my cell phone because the Wi-Fi from the rehab is very weak. So he's actually hearing from my cell phone. I don't know who that is. We've been asking and they have not been
Oh,
disclosing the names. So,
So
but Parikshit
I would
Prabhu
like
is
to hear
here.
what Parikshit Prabhu might have to say first, if I don't mind. If he has,
Sure,
if he has any
Prabhu.
comments.
Let me see if he's able to. He just muted him.
I can hear.
Okay, can you? Okay, good. Can you speak?
Yes.
Okay, Vishnupada Prabhu would like you to share your thoughts.
Okay.
Okay.
I just need to please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, from what I know to that place, he was mentioning about yogis. See, we are leaving our bodies different times, but yogis can control when they leave their bodies. They can leave their bodies at will. And he gave the example that Maharaj Shantanu gave as a gift to his son, Bhishma, when Bhishma took the vow just to allow him, Shantanu, to marry Satyavati. Shantanu gave Bhishma the boon that he could leave his body whenever he wanted to. And that's how it turned out. Even when he got all those arrows in him and Kurukshetra, he never died until he got ready to die. Mm-hmm. So he also advised it's better to talk about Krishna than to talk nonsense. And I know that one thing is that talking nonsense will send us to hell. I thought that was interesting, even though it's true, but we don't think about it that way. Then he talked about yoga. Yoga practice means controlling the senses. And he said it's meant for persons who are too much attached to the body. Mhm. And yoga is actually meant to purify the senses. But then he talked about the senses as Arjuna complained about the senses. He says if we stop one sense, then the other sense may be agitated. And he quoted, Marchita, no, that one. Manasya Indriyani, Takitistani Kashati. We're living with the senses, but then we're part of Krishna, but our senses are bothering us in this material world, 6 senses, including the mind. So he said we're being bothered by the senses. But Bhakti Yoga, then he put it, Bhakti Yoga engages the mind and senses in service to Krishna. That way the senses get controlled. So then he talked about how we should start the whole process of Bhakti Yoga, beginning from hearing about Krishna. And then he laid it, but he said, but what is Krishna though? You give an example, the American dollar says, in God we trust. But how can we trust God if we don't know who God is? So Prabhupada not giving us such a point so much. Then he talked about hearing them. And he gave himself as an example that he liked to hear Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. Even though he didn't understand Maharaj very well, and we all know Maharaj uses a lot of big words, but he liked to hear. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj noted that about Srila Prabhupada. Was very happy with him because he liked to hear. So in the first process of hearing, he referred to himself as an example in his relation to his would-be spiritual master at the time. So Bhakti Yoga says, he said it cleanses the mind and the senses. So hearing, Singata Swagata Krishna Punya Savana Ketana, hearing about Krishna, very good. It gradually made another point. Hearing about Krishna would gradually make us pious. Krishna Katha would act. And he gave an example, even if a child takes poison without knowing that it is poison, just because a child doesn't know that it is poison, does not mean the poison will not act. It will act. So even if we don't understand properly, like he didn't understand Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, he still heard and he would act. So my final point I put that we should hear Krishna for 24 hours and we will be purified. And we should also involve ourselves in kirtan. So that's what I put down. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for this summary of Srila Prabhupada's class. Vishukada Prabhu, would you like to start and take over, Prabhu? Would like to hear from you too.
I won't take over, but I'll say a few things.
Thank you. No, Prabhu, please share your thoughts.
What Parikshit Prabhu said about, Bhishmadev leaving his body at will. I mean, it just gives us a hint about how advanced the society was. We look at, Srila Prabhupada was making the point that the yogi has control over his breathing and then ultimately whether he leaves the body or not, just like in this verse, Yudhishthira Maharaj is choosing a process to leave the body. But Hiranyakashipu did great austerities to he wanted to become immortal. He worshipped Lord Brahma. But what did Lord Brahma say after he pleased him? What did Lord Brahma say? He said, I want immortality. What did Lord Brahma say?
When he was answering Hiranyakasipu Prabhu,
Yes.
he said that even I can die. Even I don't know when I will die. Even I'm not I'm not immortal myself.
Not
Even
only
I can die.
himself,
Is
but
what
he
he said.
couldn't give immortality.
Yes.
Yes.
He couldn't give
So
because he himself is not mortal.
Yes. So how advanced this culture was, because a king, that was Shantanu Maharaj, could give such a benediction to his son that you can die at your will, only at your will. In contrast, right? Such a even a powerful person like Shantanu, who's he's not a demigod, or at least not in that life, demigod. So that's amazing. And in Nectar Devotion, there's the story of the Brahmin who was poor, so he couldn't obtain the paraphernalia for a gorgeous worship of the Lord. But he heard in a assembly of devotees talking that you can do the worship in your mind if you can't do it practically, you know. So he was daily doing that. He was fixing his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead's form in his mind. And Srila Prabhupada comments there that previously, even ordinary persons could do that. Fix it. So now we spend, our lives to do being able to fix our mind on Lord Krishna. But in previous ages, people were so pious and trained that they could do it. Ordinary persons, even ordinary persons can do it. And the example given of Shantanu Maharaj, Bhishma Dev got he got the Satyavati to marry his father, and Prabhupada commented, that was his father's sense gratification. Did you notice that? Even for that, yeah. So that was
Yes,
very
yes, Prabhu.
interesting.
I caught that one too.
So we usually think about, how nowadays modern society is very advanced, but how the advancement was different. And so it was very, very wonderful. There's that. And mm. Oh, and Srila Prabhupada was mentioning distributing the Krishna books at the last part, yeah. And I know many temples, they do on the Bhagavad Gita Jayanti Day, they do they ask people to sponsor Bhagavad Gitas. I don't know if you do that in Harrisburg.
Yes, Prabhu. And we also do the recitation of Bhagavad Gita in English and we follow we put up a slideshow of His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu and we follow him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, one might consider, because people, they can sponsor Bhagavad Gitas. So there's books, Krishna's instructions are in Bhagavad Gita, and what's Krishna Katha's, his instructions, and also about him. So I encourage people to also sponsor Krishna books, because some people already have a Bhagavad Gita. So if they sponsor Krishna books, that's also Krishna. It can also be done. I mean, you can put emphasis on Bhagavad Gita, but also no harm in also sponsoring Krishna books. Do you follow?
Yes, that's a good idea, Prabhu. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, a couple of ideas. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for sharing the points. In fact, Prabhu, it's interesting when you mentioned, and even Prabhupada mentioned that too, that Srila Prabhupada, I mean, in his lecture, he was saying that, Bhishma Dev was taking that vow, even though it was was to satisfy Shantanu's sense gratification. And I was just thinking, wow, how, what's the word? How great of a son or soul Bhishma Dev was to actually, take that vow of celibacy, you know, and Prabhupada says, but Shantanu wanted it because of the sense gratification. That like somehow those two things kind of don't go together. Here you have a son who's willing to do anything for the father, for the country, and then here you have the king because he wants to satisfy his son's gratification. It's like I don't know. It somehow because it's kind of an interesting uh, play out of stuff how it came out. So that was like interesting. But yeah, I don't know if you could comment on that, Prabhu. I mean, that's interesting.
There was another instance where that occurred also. Similar thing. It was Maharaj Yayati, and he had two wives, Sharmishtra and Devayani. Devayani was the daughter of Shukracharya. So she was a Brahmani, and usually the Kshatriyas don't marry Brahmanis, but she had had some curse against one of the disciples of Shukracharya, who was the son of Brihaspati. So she couldn't marry a Brahmin. So she married him. She was the first. She married Yayati Maharaj, who was the king. He was the emperor. But the second wife, she was a little jealous of, and so the Sharmishta had a child before Devayani, the first wife. So she got really mad, and she went to her father, Yayati. Remember this? And she complained to her father. So her father, in anger, Shukracharya cursed Yayati that he become an old man. Remember this?
Wow.
So then,
It's slowly coming back to me a little bit, Prabhu.
yeah. So anyway, so by this time, I don't know, there must have been some time passed, but by this time, there were several sons, both some by Sharmishta, some by Devayani, and Yayati Maharaj was very unhappy, of course, that he was getting cursed to be an old man. So he wanted to transfer the curse to one of his sons. You remember this? And what was that? Why was he trying to transfer the curse to one of his sons?
Son's gratification.
Yes.
Yes. Now it's coming back to me, Prabhu. Yes.
So one son did accept it. He did accept it, and that was Puru, and he became the emperor. But one other son, by the name of Yadu, rejected the request by his father, but he gave a very good explanation. He said, "If I accept the old age now, before I won't, I'm not renounced enough yet." Something like this to the effect, "I'm not renounced, so I won't be able to make proper spiritual progress if I try to renounce prematurely." And the comment by the Acharyas are, Srila Prabhupada comments that because he understood that his purpose of life was to go back to Godhead, to make spiritual advancement, Lord Krishna appeared in his dynasty. You follow? The Yadu dynasty, yeah.
Yes. Wow,
Even though he refused the request of his father. So both Puru, he was glorified, and Yadu also was glorified. Although technically the Yadus weren't supposed to become the emperors. That's why Krishna in Dwarka, he was not the emperor. Ugrasena was the emperor. He was a subordinate king because of that. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Yeah,
But
wow.
but because Puru accepted the request of his father and accepted the old age against, he took that. He was glorified.
Mm, 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 mm. Thank you, Prabhu, for sharing
And,
that
and
wonderful
so
pastime.
then this is the Vedic system, to worship and to follow the instruction, unless there's some specific reason, not, but generally to follow the instruction of the superior, in this case the father, and in Bhishma's case the father, Bhishmadev's case. So when it happened that Dhritarashtra was giving instructions to the Pandavas, even though he asked them to go to Varanavata, and they went, and what happened when they went? They were trying to get assassinated, but still, even so, when he asked them to have a dice match, they had, Yudhishthira agreed, because it was such that you had to follow the instruction of the superior. Even previous instruction was they tried to kill him. It's just so, but finally they understood this is not our it's so unusual. This is not our well wisher. Our father figure Dhritarashtra is not our well wisher. It was very difficult. Which is a preliminary thing of which happens nowadays.
Yes. Wow, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for enlightening and shedding light on this point. Thank you. Any other points from devotees, if you would like to share some realizations of reflections or food for thought that really struck out, for you, that sticked out for you, in this class, stuck up, please do raise your hand, or you can just jump right in. For me, I think of course, the whole Prabhupada's lectures, everything is so powerful, but there were 2 points that I made note that was very powerful for me, is Sri Prabhupada said, and it had me thinking, it's like we know it, but then we just need to be reminded that, how it works, where Sri Prabhupada says, if you can control your mind, then you can control the words and senses. So that was really powerful. I had to really think about that. I said, wow, it all starts from the here. Sometimes I think I think that whatever shoots out from the mouth, it just comes out like what they call, dots of, like darts, like arrows, just boom, 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 boom. But it starts from here, the mind. Even though we may not realize that it's starting from the mind, but that's the beginning stage, and it just goes so fast. In fact, I was thinking that how sometimes the mind, I mean, the words and the senses just goes, that we forget to think the origin or the source of the words and the senses is from the mind. But because it happens so quickly, when it just comes down from the mind to words and senses, we forget that it's coming from the mind. So I was really thinking about that. So, wow, the mind is such a rascal. So that was one that had me really think, that but the power of the mind, good and bad. So that was one of my takeaways. And the other one, when Sri Prabhupada was saying the power, I mean, I called it the power, but Prabhupada said the the inquisitiveness. And Sri Prabhupada mentioned and I've heard this in other lectures of Sri Prabhupada too, but even here Sri Prabhupada said that the important one is shravanam, hearing. And then what was so powerful, even though I've heard that in other lectures by Srila Prabhupada, where even though he did not understand his spiritual masters, was because we all know that Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was a very highly educated, eloquent pucker, like speaker, like his words are like whoa, like high class. But even though Srila Prabhupada didn't understand, but he still listened. He still listened. He was very inquisitive. So when I heard that today again, it really tied. I don't want to use the word tied. I think for me, it really cemented the point of how important Shravanam is. And just by Srila Prabhupada, having that power of inquisitiveness, the power of hearing, um, everything, even though he didn't understand his spiritual master's high level philosophical classes, but, it showed that we can be purified to control our mind and senses. So I was really meditating on how important it is to be inquisitive, of course, for the right thing, not for the wrong thing or the material or the nonsensical stuff, the nonsense stuff, but definitely for the right thing. But I was really thinking, wow, it really pays to be inquisitive in Krishna consciousness in the right way. It really pays. So these are my main 2 points. Of course, you and Prikshit have mentioned other points, meaning Prikshit and Vishuddha Prabhu has mentioned other points. So that was one of my, that inquiry, the inquisitiveness was very strong, and the mind, controlling the mind, we can control the words and senses. And I think also if we want to say something by words and senses, we have to control the mind and, check the mind of how it's going to formulate what's going to come out from the word and senses. So that was one strong point for me. Anyone else would like to share something? Yes.
I want to add a little bit to it.
Okay, go ahead, and then I'll go to Damodar. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I've already spoken, so Dhamma, speak first and then after.
Okay, Damodar, go ahead. Damodar.
Hare Krishna.
Okay,
Accept my
Haribol.
humble obeisances, all glories to
Accept.
Prabhupada.
Jai of
All
Pine,
glories to
Haribol.
the devotees on the call. Yeah, Prabhupada always gives classes which are very strong. And you can just see the knowledge that he had, like talking from like Ashtanga Yoga, and he's telling where you put the soul while leaving the body, and then you can go back to Godhead and like this. So it was really wonderful. The last point that he made, I really liked. Towards the end, he said like, because it is difficult for us to even do Kirtaniya Sadahari, we engage our students in Sevaniya Sadahari. Towards the very end, like, towards like 3-4 sentences just before ending, he says that. So like serving 24 hours a day, like that he was saying. So that was something really powerful for me, that, just a small change, but it makes a lot of sense to engage our mind. We need to engage in some activity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Damodar. Thank you. Ravi, please go ahead. We'd love to hear from you. So nice to see you.
Good morning, everyone. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Sorry, quick question here. I was going to the reading the Bhagavatam. Here is 115:41 verse, but I just went back a little bit, 2 and 3 verses, and connecting the 41. I'm just comparing how Arjuna's grief here compared to his confusion in the Kurukshetra, which is started in Bhagavad Gita chapter 1. So how do we compare both situations, that is confusion in the war and the grief here?
His confusion in the war. Oh, okay. Vishagata Prabhu, would you like to answer the question, Prabhu?
I can say a few words.
Yes, please, Prabhu.
My understanding here is that this is Yudhishthira Maharaj. This is Yudhishthira Maharaj, just after they're
Yes.
going, after Krishna left the planet. So, of course, prior to this, when when Arjuna went to Dwarka and he learned that Krishna had left the planet, then he returned, and then he was speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj about his grief, and at the same time, at the end, he was feeling the grief, and then he remembered the instructions that he received from Lord Krishna, which are as good as Krishna, and that relieved him of the grief. So similarly, just like when he, at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, he was feeling, he was devastated by having to see that he was going to have to fight and kill some of his relatives, his grandfather, his friends, etc. So, but hearing Bhagavad Gita, he got relieved from that disturbance. So it's a good lesson that we will have times in our lives when it'll again and again come to be situations where we're going to feel troubled, but by regularly and repeatedly hearing, like Srila Prabhupada is recommending, then we can make progress in spiritual life and ultimately be relieved of that misunderstanding. Grief will come from misunderstanding fully, if that makes sense.
Does that help, Ravi?
Yes, absolutely. Mataji. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I knew that Vishugata Prabhu will answer, we'll get it. Thank you. But that's a very nice question, Ravi, actually, how you connected both that into the situations. And yes, very, very nice. Thank you. Very nice question. Anyone else would like to ask a question, please? We did pass the hour, but I still don't want to, not answer devotees or, and respect devotees' questions. If you do have, raise your hand, or you can just jump right in going down the list. Okay. If there isn't, We thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you for wonderful question and discussion. Thank you for sharing. Vanchakrapalibhyascha kripasindobheva Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful day, devotees. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada.